The night had fallen quiet across the plains, the kind of silence that made a man feel small under the weight of the sky. The wind had died hours ago, leaving only the creak of old wood and the distant cry of something wild. The rancher stood by the fence, the lantern in his hand throwing a soft circle of light across the dry earth. He had been ready to turn in when he heard it, a sound faint and broken, like someone calling from far away. At first he thought it was the wind playing tricks, the kind that whispers through the grass and makes a man imagine things. But then it came again, a voice, a woman's voice, weak, trembling, "Please just kill me fast." The words stopped him cold. For a moment he didn't move. They didn't sound like a threat or a plea for help, just the surrender of someone who had already lost everything. He lifted the lantern higher, his eyes searching the open land. Nothing but the endless stretch of dirt and the outline of his barn against the horizon. Then he saw her. A small shape at the edge of the fence line, crouched low, wrapped in something dark. She wasn't moving much, just shivering like a leaf caught in the last breath of wind. The rancher's gut tightened. Out here, people didn't wander at night unless they had a reason, and no reason was ever good. He approached slowly, his boots crunching against the hard soil. The closer he got, the clearer the picture became, a woman, barefoot, her clothes torn and filthy, her face streaked with blood and dust. She clutched a blanket to her chest, holding it so tight her knuckles had gone white. Her eyes flicked up to meet his, wide and hollow. "Ma'am," he said, his voice low, steady. "You're hurt. Let me help." She shook her head weakly. "No, you don't understand." He could see she was trembling, her lips cracked, her breathing shallow. Whatever she'd been through, it had broken something inside her. The rancher set the lantern down beside her, the light spilling across the torn edges of the blanket. That's when he saw it move, something small shifting beneath the fabric. Her voice came again, barely a whisper. "Please, don't look, just do it." The rancher froze where he stood, his hand hovering above the lantern's handle. He had seen plenty of strange things on the plains, lost travelers, broken men, even bodies left behind by bandits. But this was different. The woman's eyes were fixed on him, pleading, her voice thin and cracking. "Please," she whispered again. "Just do it." He didn't move. His instincts screamed to step back, but something about her, something hollow and desperate, kept him rooted. The light from the lantern flickered, catching the dirt caked on her face. She looked young, though the fear in her eyes made her seem older. Her bare feet were cut and bruised, her dress torn like she'd been dragged through thorns. "Ma'am," he said quietly, his voice carrying the calm weight of habit, "ain't nobody dyin' on my land tonight." Her breath hitched, and she pressed the blanket tighter against her chest. The faintest sound came from beneath it, not a cry, not a word, but a soft rustling, like something shifting under the fabric. The rancher's brow furrowed. He crouched down slowly, trying to meet her eyes. "What's in the blanket?" he asked. She flinched at his question, shaking her head. "Don't," she said sharply. "Please don't open it, you can't help it. No one can." The fear in her tone sent a chill through him. He'd heard panic before, men screaming from broken bones, women crying for help, but this was different. This was the kind of fear that came from something beyond pain, something you couldn't reason with. He looked down again. The blanket was old, torn in places, stained with something dark. His gut twisted. Blood, not fresh but old enough to dry along the edges. He drew a slow breath, keeping his voice steady. "You're hurt," he said. "You need a doctor. My horse can take us to town before sunrise." Her head jerked up, and for the first time anger flashed across her face. "No," she shouted, then winced, clutching her side. "No doctors, no towns, just finish it, please, before it finds me." The rancher's stomach tightened. "Before what finds you?" She looked toward the horizon, her eyes scanning the empty fields. The moon hung low, casting long shadows across the dry grass. "It doesn't stop," she murmured. "It keeps looking. It follows the sound." Her voice cracked on the last word. The rancher felt his pulse quicken. "Ma'am," he said, slower this time, "who's following you?" But she didn't answer. She just stared into the dark, her lips moving silently. The wind picked up, a low whisper running through the grass like footsteps. The rancher turned his head slightly, every muscle tensing. The fields were empty, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. He crouched lower, his voice quieter now. "You're safe here," he said. "Ain't no one gonna touch you while I'm breathin'." Her eyes flicked toward him, soft for a moment. "You don't understand," she whispered. "It doesn't care about safe. It only wants what's in here." She looked down at the blanket, trembling as she spoke. "It'll come for it, always does." The rancher followed her gaze. The movement beneath the blanket had stopped. The fabric was still, heavy in her arms. She looked like she was fighting herself just to hold it tighter. "What's in there, ma'am?" he asked again, his tone low but firm. She shook her head slowly, her voice a thread. "It was my baby," she said, "but it's not anymore." The words hung in the air like smoke, thick and cold. The rancher stared at her, his mouth dry. "What do you mean?" he managed. She didn't look at him. "I buried him, I swear I did, but it came back. I heard him crying last night." Her voice broke. "And I dug him up. I had to." The rancher felt his heart stutter in his chest. He stood abruptly, backing away a step. "You're talking nonsense," he said, but even he didn't believe his own words. She looked up at him then, tears tracing through the dust on her cheeks. "You think I want this," she said. "You think I wanted to carry him again. I tried to leave it behind. I tried to burn it. But every time I wake up, it's in my arms." The rancher took a slow breath, steadying himself. He glanced toward his house, the porch light barely visible through the dark. He wanted to walk away, to leave this madness behind. But the sight of her, broken, shaking, clutching that cursed bundle, held him in place. Finally, he spoke. "Let me see," he said. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide. "No, if you look, it'll know. It always knows." He took a step closer, his boots crunching against the dirt. "You need help, and I need to understand what's going on. Whatever's in there, I've seen worse." She laughed then, a short, bitter sound. "No," she said softly. "You haven't." He reached for the edge of the blanket. She tried to pull away, but she was too weak. His hand brushed against the fabric. It was cold. Too cold. The air seemed to thicken around them, the lantern flickering even though there was no wind. Her breathing quickened. "Don't," she whispered again, her voice trembling. "Please don't." But he was already lifting the corner just a little, enough to see the inside. He stumbled back immediately, the blanket falling from his hand. The lantern tipped and hit the ground, sending sparks into the dirt. His breath caught in his throat as his eyes adjusted to what he had seen. The woman let out a sound, not a scream, not a sob, but something caught between grief and madness. She clutched the blanket again, covering it quickly, rocking back and forth as if trying to quiet something that wasn't there. The rancher backed away, his heart hammering. The image burned into his mind. Whatever he'd seen wasn't just death. It was wrong, twisted, something no human should ever have to look at. He could barely form the words. What is that?" The woman didn't answer. She just stared at the ground, her voice hollow. "I told you," she said. "It doesn't stay buried." The rancher's hands shook as he reached for the fallen lantern. The fire had gone out, leaving them in the cold glow of the moon. He wanted to run. He wanted to pretend none of this had happened, but he couldn't move. Somewhere out in the distance, something howled, long, low, and mournful. The woman's head snapped up, eyes wide with terror. "It's coming," she whispered. "It knows you saw." The rancher turned toward the dark horizon, his stomach turning to stone. The sound was getting closer. The kind of sound that didn't belong to any creature he'd ever known. The woman began to cry, clutching the blanket to her chest, whispering the same words over and over. "I told you not to look. I told you not to." The sound rolled across the empty plains like thunder, low and heavy, rumbling through the ground. The rancher stood frozen, staring toward the horizon where the moonlight spilled over the hills. His breath came shallow, his mind caught between disbelief and the cold, sharp edge of fear. The woman was trembling, clutching that blanket as if letting go would end her. Her eyes darted wildly from shadow to shadow, the way a cornered animal watches for the thing it knows is coming. The rancher finally found his voice, rough and uneven. "What is that?" She didn't answer. Her lips moved, whispering something too soft to hear. He stepped closer, crouching in front of her. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "if you want to live, you need to tell me what's out there." Her head jerked up, and for the first time he saw her face in full light, pale, streaked with dirt, eyes bloodshot and wide with something deeper than fear. "It's him," she said, her voice cracking. "He's looking for me." The rancher frowned, trying to make sense of her words. "Who?" she hesitated, her breath catching. "My husband." The rancher's brow furrowed. "Your husband's out there." Her eyes shifted toward the dark. "Not anymore," she whispered. The rancher's stomach turned. "You're saying he's dead?" She nodded slowly. "I buried him 3 days ago." The words hit him like ice. He stared at her, his throat dry. "Then what the hell's coming this way?" The woman looked down at the bundle in her arms. Her fingers twitched against the blanket. "He won't stop till he gets it back," she said softly. The rancher took a small step backward, his eyes flicking between her and the horizon. The air had grown colder, the kind of cold that didn't belong to summer nights. Even the crickets had gone silent. The only sound left was the faint creak of the windmill turning slow in the distance. He could see movement now, a shape at the far end of the field, low and swaying, just outside the fence line. It wasn't riding, wasn't walking right either. It moved like something dragging itself through the dirt. The woman's breath hitched. "You shouldn't have looked," she whispered. The rancher reached for the rifle slung over his shoulder. "Whatever that is, it ain't gonna make it past this fence," he said. His voice sounded stronger than he felt. She shook her head, tears streaking down her cheeks. "You can't shoot it. I tried. I burned it, buried it. It always comes back." He ignored her, eyes fixed on the figure growing clearer in the moonlight. It was still far, but close enough now to make out a shape. A man, hunched, clothes torn and hanging loose, face too dark to see. His gait was wrong, jerky and slow, like each step was pulled from the earth by force. The rancher raised his rifle and aimed. "Stay back," he shouted, though the words caught in his throat. The figure didn't stop. It kept coming, dragging one leg behind it, head tilting side to side like it was sniffing the air. When it reached the fence, it paused. The night went still. The rancher's finger tightened on the trigger. Then the figure spoke. The voice was rough, broken, but familiar in a way that made the hair on his neck rise. "Mara," it said, the woman's name. Her body went stiff. The sound of that voice shattered something inside her. "No," she gasped, shaking her head. "No, no, no, you can't." The rancher looked at her. "That your husband?" Her voice came out in a whisper. "It was." The figure stepped closer, the wood of the fence creaking beneath its weight. The moonlight hit its face and the rancher felt his stomach twist. The skin was gray, stretched tight across the bone. The eyes were hollow, black but moving. The mouth twisted into something like a grin. "Mara," it said again. "You took him." The rancher fired. The crack of the rifle split the night, echoing through the plains. The figure staggered back but didn't fall. A dark stain spread across its chest, but there was no sound, no groan of pain, only that same slow, dragging step as it moved forward again. The woman screamed. The rancher reloaded, firing again, then again. Each shot hit, but the thing kept coming, slower now but relentless, its face locked on the woman. "Get inside," the rancher yelled. She didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on the creature as tears streamed down her face. "He just wants him back," she whispered, looking down at the bundle in her arms. "He won't stop until he has him." The rancher didn't understand, didn't want to. He grabbed her by the arm, pulling her toward the house. She fought him, clutching the blanket tighter. "I can't let it take him," she cried. "It'll never end." He dragged her through the doorway, slamming it shut behind them. The sound of scraping outside grew louder, fingernails or claws against wood, slow and steady. The rancher shoved a chair under the handle and stepped back, breathing hard. The woman stood near the table, shaking. The lantern light flickered across her face. "You don't understand," she whispered. "It's not just him, it's what I brought back." The rancher turned to her, his voice rough. "What did you bring back?" Her hands trembled as she pulled the edge of the blanket open again. The lantern light caught something inside, small, pale, and still. It wasn't moving now, but he could see the tiny shape of a child's face, half hidden in the folds. He stepped back, his throat closing. Her eyes met his, filled with tears and something else, guilt. "He was sick," she said softly. "I prayed, begged for him to come back, and he did, but not right." The rancher felt a cold sweat break over his skin. "You mean that thing out there?" She nodded, her voice breaking. "He followed. He always follows. He wants him back." The banging at the door grew louder, harder. The wood began to splinter. The rancher grabbed the rifle again, his hands shaking. "Stay behind me," he said. The woman took a step back, clutching the blanket close. "You can't stop him. I told you you can't stop him." The door cracked once, then again, and a cold wind rushed through the room. The lantern flickered wildly, the shadows twisting across the walls. The woman started to sob, rocking the small bundle in her arms. The rancher aimed at the door, his jaw tight, his voice low. "If he wants in, he'll have to walk through fire." And as the final plank of wood gave way, the creature stepped into the doorway, its eyes burning with something that wasn't life, and a voice that carried more sorrow than anger. "Mara," it whispered again, "give him back." The door groaned under the weight of something pushing against it. The rancher stepped back, rifle aimed, his heartbeat hammering against his ribs. Dust shook loose from the ceiling as the hinges creaked. The woman was still rocking on her feet, holding the blanket close to her chest, whispering something over and over, words that didn't sound like a prayer anymore, but something older, something broken. A hand pushed through the crack in the wood. It wasn't the hand of a man. The fingers were long, stiff, blackened around the nails. The skin looked like wet leather stretched too thin. The creature's grip tightened on the doorframe and the wood splintered. The rancher fired again, the blast lighting up the room. The echo tore through the cabin and into the fields beyond, but the thing didn't fall. It just stopped for a moment, as if studying him. He reloaded fast, jaw tight. "Stay behind me," he said without looking back. The woman didn't move. She was staring at the door, her lips trembling. "It won't stop," she whispered. "It can't stop until it gets what it lost." The wind howled outside, slamming against the windows. The lantern light flickered, throwing long, wild shadows across the walls. The creature pushed again, and the door gave way, snapping off one hinge. It stepped into the cabin, slow and deliberate. The smell hit first, damp earth and decay. Then came the sound, a low rasp that might have been breathing or might have been something else entirely. The rancher aimed for its head. The shape was clearer now under the unsteady light. A man's body, but twisted, too tall, too thin, skin gray as ash. Its eyes were hollow, but inside those hollows glowed a faint orange light, faint but steady, like embers refusing to die. "Mara," it said, voice cracked and raw. The woman flinched, covering her ears. "Don't say my name," she cried. "Please don't say it." The creature tilted its head like a child trying to remember something. "You called me," it said. The rancher fired again. The creature jerked backward but didn't fall. It turned its head toward him slowly, unnaturally, as if its neck was learning how to move. "Not you," it rasped. "You didn't call me." The rancher took a step back, boots scraping across the wooden floor. His rifle trembled slightly in his grip. "You stay right where you are," he said. "You take one more step and I'll—" Before he could finish, the creature moved, fast, too fast. It lunged across the room, knocking the rifle from his hands. The weapon clattered to the floor. The rancher stumbled, hitting the table hard. The lantern tipped, spilling fire across the boards. The flames spread, licking up the leg of the chair. The room filled with heat and smoke. The woman screamed, clutching the blanket tighter. "No, don't hurt him again." The creature stopped. The sound of her voice seemed to freeze it in place. Slowly it turned toward her. "Mara," it said again, softer this time. "You took him from me." She was crying now, shaking her head. "You were gone," she whispered. "You were gone, and he was all I had. I just wanted him back." The rancher scrambled across the floor, reaching for the rifle. The smoke was thick now, the fire spreading fast. He grabbed the gun and aimed again, but his hands were shaking. The creature's gaze dropped to the bundle in her arms. "He's not yours anymore," it said. The woman's eyes filled with terror. "He's mine," she said, voice breaking. "You can't have him." The rancher saw her grip tighten on the blanket as if she could hold on through sheer will. But the thing took another step forward, its voice low and guttural. "He doesn't belong here." The rancher fired again. The bullet hit its shoulder, sending a spray of ash into the air. The creature stumbled but didn't fall. The orange light in its eyes flickered brighter, like a flame catching new breath. It turned toward the rancher, and for a moment he thought it smiled. Then it spoke again. "You can't kill what's already dead." The words crawled under his skin. The woman's sobs grew louder. The flames climbed higher up the walls. The air shimmered with heat, smoke stinging his eyes. The creature moved toward her now, each step slow, deliberate. The rancher knew he couldn't stop it. The bullets weren't enough. The fire wasn't enough. Nothing felt enough. He grabbed the poker from beside the stove, holding it tight in both hands. "Get back," he shouted, his voice raw, but the creature didn't even look at him. It reached for the woman, its long, blackened fingers hovering just above the blanket. She pressed it closer to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "Please," she whispered, "don't take him." The creature's voice softened, almost human. "You don't understand. He's not here anymore." Her body went still. The strength seemed to drain out of her all at once. She looked down at the bundle in her arms. Her voice came out small, broken. "What do you mean?" The creature's hand touched the fabric lightly, almost gently. The rancher expected it to snatch the bundle away, but instead it lifted one corner. The woman gasped, her knees buckling. The rancher caught sight of what was inside, small, frail, wrapped tight in the folds of the blanket. The tiny face was pale, still, untouched by breath or life. It was a body, nothing more. No movement. No sound. The rancher's chest tightened. He looked at the woman, her face frozen in horror. "He's gone," the creature whispered. "He's been gone since the night you called me." The woman collapsed to her knees, her voice shaking. "No," she said, clutching the tiny shape again. "I heard him cry. I did. He was warm. The creature knelt beside her, lowering its head. "You heard me," it said. The rancher took a step forward, not knowing why. The fire had reached the ceiling now, sparks raining down. The creature's face was close to hers, its hollow eyes glowing softly. "Let him rest," it murmured. For a moment the world seemed to hold its breath. The woman looked down at the bundle in her arms. Slowly, painfully, she loosened her grip. Her hands trembled as she laid the small form on the ground. The creature reached out one last time, its touch light as dust. Then the glow in its eyes dimmed, fading like embers cooling in ash. Its body swayed, breaking apart as if the fire had finally claimed it. Within seconds it was gone, nothing left but a faint smell of earth and smoke. The woman's sobs filled the silence that followed. The rancher stood still, his rifle heavy in his hands, the fire crackling louder now. He wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. Outside, the wind began to rise again, sweeping across the open land. The flames roared higher, painting the cabin walls with orange light as the woman knelt in the middle of it all, whispering her child's name into the smoke. The fire climbed up the walls, hissing as it swallowed the old wood. The rancher could feel the heat pressing against his skin, could taste the smoke curling into his throat. The woman didn't move. She knelt on the floor beside the small bundle, her fingers still resting on the fabric as if afraid to let go. The orange light flickered across her face, turning her tears into streaks of gold. The creature was gone, but its presence lingered heavy, thick, like the air right before a storm. "Ma'am," the rancher said hoarsely, "we need to get out." She didn't look at him, her voice was distant, flat. "He's gone again," she whispered, "truly gone." He took a step toward her, coughing through the smoke. "If we don't leave, we'll be next." Still, she didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on the floor, on the small, still shape that lay wrapped in the tattered blanket. He hesitated, torn between leaving her and dragging her out by force. The roof above them groaned, bits of burning debris falling around them. "Come on," he said, reaching for her arm. His hand closed around her wrist, thin, trembling, ice-cold despite the fire's heat. She looked up at him then, her eyes empty, her voice barely audible. "It never ends," she said. "You can bury it, burn it, pray over it, but it never ends." The rancher pulled her to her feet anyway. The floorboards creaked beneath them as he led her toward the door. The flames were crawling across the ceiling, sparks raining down. Every breath burned in his lungs, but he didn't let go of her hand. He pushed through the doorway into the cool night air, the sudden wind hitting his face like a slap. They stumbled down into the dirt, coughing and gasping. Behind them, the cabin burned like a beacon, its glow stretching across the empty fields. The woman fell to her knees again, staring at it as if she could still see what was left inside. The rancher stood beside her, his chest heaving. "Ain't nothing left in there," he said quietly. "Let it burn." She didn't answer. Her gaze stayed locked on the flames. The fire roared louder, and for a moment he swore he heard voices inside, faint cries, echoes, whispers he couldn't make out. The sound made the hair rise on his arms. He turned away from it, looking out toward the horizon. The land was dark again, but the moonlight caught on something far in the distance, movement. A shape walking along the fence line, slow and steady. His heart sank. It couldn't be. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, then looked again. The figure was still there, not running, just walking. The woman must have seen it too, because she drew in a sharp breath. "No," she whispered. "It can't." The rancher's hand went to his rifle, though deep down he knew it wouldn't matter. "Stay here," he said, but she grabbed his arm. "Don't," she begged. "You can't stop it. You saw what happened inside." He shook her off gently, eyes fixed on the figure that kept coming closer. "Maybe I can't stop it," he said, "but I sure as hell can try." He started toward the fence, his boots crunching over the dirt. The night was still except for the crackle of fire behind him and the low whistle of the wind. As he drew closer, the figure became clearer, a man, or something wearing the shape of one. The moonlight glinted off its face, revealing gray skin stretched tight and those same faint orange eyes burning in the hollow sockets. The rancher raised his rifle. "You don't belong here," he called out. The thing stopped walking. Its voice came low and rough, carried by the wind. "Neither do you." The rancher hesitated, his finger hovering on the trigger. "You're dead," he said. The thing tilted its head, the movement slow and unnatural. "So are they." It nodded toward the burning cabin. The rancher's grip tightened. "What do you want?" The creature took another step forward, its voice like a whisper of dry leaves. "You saw, you touched it, now it remembers you." The words hit harder than he expected. "What the hell does that mean?" "It knows your name," the thing said. Before he could react, the figure began to crumble, its body breaking apart like ash caught in the wind. Within seconds it was gone, nothing but dust carried away across the open plains. The air turned still again, the silence heavy and endless. The rancher lowered the rifle slowly, his mind racing. He turned back toward the fire where the woman still knelt, silhouetted against the glow. Her shoulders were shaking, but she wasn't crying. She looked hollow, emptied of everything. He walked back, each step heavier than the last. When he reached her, he crouched beside her, the light flickering across his weathered face. "It's gone," he said. "Whatever it was, it's gone." She turned her head slightly toward him. "No," she said softly, "it never leaves. It just finds someone new." He frowned. "You're talking like it's still out there." She looked up at him then, and for the first time he noticed the faint glow in her eyes, a reflection of the fire, maybe, or something else entirely. "It's already with you," she said. The rancher opened his mouth to speak, but the words caught in his throat. A strange heat pulsed through his chest, faint at first, then stronger. He pressed a hand to his vest, and his fingers brushed something warm beneath the fabric. He pulled it out. The badge. Eli's badge. The same one he'd buried years ago, the one he'd sworn he'd never wear again. He didn't even remember bringing it with him, but there it was, glowing faintly in the firelight. The woman's voice trembled. "You touched it," she whispered. "Now it knows you too." The badge grew hotter, the metal burning against his skin. He dropped it into the dirt, but the light didn't fade. It pulsed like a heartbeat, casting strange shadows across the ground. The woman backed away, her face pale. "It's calling," she said. "It's always calling." The rancher stared down at it, his pulse quickening. "For what?" Her voice broke when she answered. "For the next one." The wind shifted again, cold and sharp. The fire roared behind them, sending sparks into the night sky. The badge pulsed one last time, then went dark, leaving only silence. The rancher stood there, staring at the spot where it had lain. The woman turned her face away from him, her voice trembling. "You should run," she said, "before it wakes." But he didn't move. He just stood there, the night pressing in, the horizon endless and empty, and somewhere far away, the faint sound of a baby's cry drifted through the wind. The cry came again, faint, soft, and carried by the wind. It didn't sound close, but it didn't sound far either. The rancher froze, every muscle in his body going tight. The woman pressed her hands to her ears, shaking her head as if she could block it out. The sound rose and fell, thin and trembling, but it was there, a baby's cry coming from somewhere across the dark field. The fire behind them had burned down to embers, glowing orange against the black sky. Smoke drifted low to the ground, curling around their boots. The rancher's rifle hung loose in his hands, the barrel still warm from earlier. He didn't remember lowering it, didn't remember breathing. He only knew that sound, soft, broken, and impossible. He turned slowly toward the open plains. The grass rippled in waves under the moonlight. Somewhere out there in that endless stretch of land, something was waiting. "You hear that?" he asked quietly, though he already knew she did. The woman's voice cracked when she spoke. "Don't answer it," he frowned. "It's just a sound." Her eyes darted toward him, wide and hollow. "No," she said, her voice trembling. "It's a calling. If you answer, it finds you." The wind shifted again, and the cry came louder this time, closer, clearer. It wasn't steady. It broke, stopped, then started again, like something pretending to be what it wasn't. The rancher's jaw tightened. He'd heard the wails of coyotes, the scream of mountain cats, even the dying breath of men, but this was none of those. This sound reached inside him, twisted around something buried deep, something he hadn't felt in years. He swallowed hard. "You said it's looking for someone, for me." The woman's lips trembled. "It doesn't stop until it's taken what it wants." He looked down at the badge still lying in the dirt. The glow was gone, but it looked wrong in the moonlight, darker around the edges, like it was absorbing the light instead of reflecting it. He bent down slowly, his hand hovering above it. The woman gasped. "Don't touch it." He paused. "If it's coming for me, it already knows where I am." His fingers brushed the metal and a shiver shot up his arm, cold and sharp as ice. For a second he heard it, a whisper, quiet and near his ear, too close to be the wind. His name. Just his name, drawn out long and soft, like someone remembering it after years of silence. He jerked his hand back, heart pounding. The woman was watching him with wide, terrified eyes. "It knows you now," she said softly. "You shouldn't have touched it." He straightened, his breath uneven. "It already knew," he said. "It's just making sure I remember." The cry came again, much closer now, not across the field this time, but from the edge of the fence line. The woman turned toward the sound, shaking her head. "It's not real," she whispered. "Don't listen." But the rancher couldn't help himself. He stepped forward, drawn toward the sound. The wind moved around him, carrying dust and the faint smell of wet earth. The moon cast long shadows across the ground, and for a moment he thought he saw something moving between them, small, low, crawling. The woman stood behind him, her voice breaking. "Please, don't go to it." He stopped at the fence, his hands gripping the top rail. The field beyond stretched out endless and pale under the moonlight. The grass swayed like waves in slow motion. Then just at the far edge of the light he saw it, a small figure, crouched low to the ground, wrapped in a blanket. His stomach twisted. He knew that blanket. The torn edge, the stains, the shape of it, it was the same one she'd carried. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "you best come look." But she stayed where she was, shaking her head. "No," she whispered. "It's not him. It's never him." The figure moved, slowly lifting its head. The rancher's breath caught in his chest. For a moment it looked like a child's small, fragile eyes closed. Then the head tilted and the movement was wrong, too smooth, too careful. The face turned toward him, pale under the moon, the mouth open in a soundless cry. Behind him the woman screamed. "Don't look at it." The rancher stumbled back, but his eyes couldn't tear away. The thing's eyes opened, not black, not hollow, but glowing faintly with that same dull orange light he'd seen before. The same light that had burned inside the creature that called itself her husband. The thing stood up slowly, its movements stiff and uneven, and the crying started again, louder now, echoing across the plains, bouncing off the night air. The woman fell to her knees, clutching her head. "I told you," she sobbed. "It never ends." The rancher raised his rifle, his hands trembling. "What is it?" he shouted over the wind. "What is it, damn it?" The thing took a step forward. The sound stopped. The air went still. Then in that silence a voice came, not from its mouth but from everywhere at once. Low, rasping, filled with grief. "You took him from me," it said. The rancher's breath caught. He looked back at the woman, but she was shaking her head, tears streaming down her face. "No," she said. "It's not him. It's what's left of him." The thing moved again, faster this time, and the ground seemed to tremble beneath it. The rancher fired. The bullet hit its chest, knocking it back, but the sound that came out wasn't pain, it was laughter, hollow and raw. The wind howled as it charged again, and the rancher fired until the rifle clicked empty. The creature stopped a few feet away, the glow in its eyes flickering. "You can't kill what's been called," it said. "You can only take its place." The rancher stared at it, his heart pounding. "Then come take me." The woman screamed his name, but he didn't turn. He took a step forward, the badge still clutched in his hand. The metal burned hotter now, as if it were alive again. He lifted it toward the thing, and the orange light in its eyes flared. "You want it," he said, his voice shaking. "Take it back." The creature lunged, its hands outstretched, but the moment it touched the badge, the light exploded, a flash so bright it lit up the entire field. The rancher stumbled back, blinded, the air vibrating with a sound like thunder. When his vision cleared, the thing was gone. Nothing but the faint smell of smoke and the sound of wind whispering through the grass. He turned around, searching for the woman. She was gone too. Only her blanket lay by the fence, half buried in dust. The fire behind him had died out completely, leaving nothing but charred wood and silence. He looked down at his hand. The badge was still there, but the glow had vanished. Only the heat remained steady, pulsing like a heartbeat that wasn't his own. The wind shifted again, and for a moment he thought he heard a voice, faint, distant, carried through the air. It was the same voice that had called his name before. Only this time it whispered something else. "Now you remember." The rancher stood there under the fading moonlight, the badge burning against his palm, the echo of the voice fading into the night, and somewhere beyond the hills, a baby cried again.